Greetings guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video where I genuinely cannot tell if my camera is centered or not because I'm staring right into a bright light. One day I will get it right. Whether today is that day or not is another story. Before we get started, I want to let you all know that today's video is sponsored by Aura Health by Aura, and I will tell you more about them a little bit later on. Anyway, in today's video, I wanted to take a dive into a YouTube channel that we have talked about once before, but I wanted to go back and look at something different because there is a never-ending stream of content from this person, and so there's always something to talk about. And that is the comment section with Brett Cooper. There is content coming out every day, I believe, and there is so much I want to say about literally every single video. But unfortunately, we do not have the time for that, nor do I have the mental capacity for that. And today, the video we are looking at is titled Gen Z Needs to Grow a Pair, which is talking about this video that went viral on Twitter a couple of weeks ago of this guy sitting in the back room of Starbucks, kind of having a little bit of a breakdown over the workplace environment and his treatment. And the right conservatives, they went in hard on this video. They absolutely tore him apart, and it's kind of ridiculous. It's not actually just conservatives and the right who are going off about this. It's just older people in general, like the older generation, as far as like even older millennials and upwards, are sort of ripping into him and saying some stuff that's really just not helpful at all. And Brett Cooper, who is Gen Z, feels like, you know, she's the voice of reason, the voice of Gen Z, and as usual is putting forward some really good and productive points. So we're gonna have a listen to what those are, and we'll see if I agree or not. My bet's on not. But let's find out. So the video itself, I won't comment on too much because I'll bounce off her thoughts, so like a debate sort of thing. She can't rebut me, but you know, it's a one-sided sort of debate. So I don't want to be like making the same point twice.
People wonder why we need a union at Starbucks, and I am literally about to quit. I'm like a full-time student. I get scheduled for 25 hours a week, and then on weekends they schedule me the entire day, open to close. I'm on the schedule for 8.5 hours. Managers don't care about us. Our manager was supposed to come in this weekend, and he took himself off the schedule, so he wouldn't be able to be held accountable for calling. There's so many mobile orders, and I need to get through all of them, and then people are yelling at me because I don't have their orders ready. And a customer was misgendering me tonight, like really badly. I didn't have their order ready. I don't get accommodations for being neurodivergent. Like, people get mad at me for using my sick time. I don't even know what to do anymore. I'm like at my wit's end with this job.
Being a full-time student and working is incredibly difficult, and it is very stressful. I worked a lot while I was a full-time student, and it's so difficult. It is really stressful. I missed out on so much of my uni. I missed so many lectures. I was so behind because I was trying really hard to work in order to save up to move to London. While also obviously trying to study. And then I also had on top of that a lot of mental health issues that were going on. I'm very lucky that I was in a department that was very, very understanding. I studied music, and my lecturers and my professors, teachers, whatever, were all very understanding. So I got a lot of extensions, I got a lot of lenience, and I was very, very grateful for that. But a lot of people don't have that, and having such strict and insane and intense time pressures would be really, really incredibly difficult already. And then you have to work on top of that. That's insane. That's such a massive workload. And I was only saving up to be able to move to London and for my own personal spending. I can't imagine having all of that stress, needing to do that just to afford to be able to like pay rent and pay for food. I lived at home when I was studying because it was like a 15-minute walk from university, my family house, so I didn't have to pay for anything like that. So I was really lucky. I can't imagine the stress of not having that while having to be at university and oh my gosh, so many people have to do that, and that is so incredibly stressful, and I am so sorry that that is a position that you have been forced into, because my god. Anyway, now that I've had my little rant, let's see what she has to say about it, because I feel as though she feels differently to me about how complaining about working and being a student, but you know, let's see.
Okay, you know what happens when you don't like a job and you feel like you're being exploited or whatever? You can quit.
But like, you can't though. You kind of need a job to be able to not even like live, but to survive. You kind of need a job. Like, I don't know if you're aware of this, Brett, but food costs money, electricity costs money, gas costs money, insurance costs money, rent, housing, that costs money, your clothes cost money, literally everything costs money. And you need to work in order to get that money, because this is capitalism, and retail jobs and customer service, especially at places like Starbucks, are very heavily reliant on students, especially, who can't find other work because no one else wants to hire students and people who have busy schedules and other commitments. So places like Starbucks hire them, and there's not very many other options. You say like, there's a job crisis, there's so many jobs available. No, no, there's not. Not for students, not for young people. You need experience, you need degrees, you need so much in order to get a job. It's not that easy. You can't just quit. And you especially can't quit without having another job lined up. Like, for all you know, he is looking for another job, but like, can't find one. Starbucks pays fairly above minimum wage. It pays 18% above the average wages. So yeah, you're gonna want to keep your job at Starbucks as opposed to working at like McDonald's or Forever 21 or whatever, whom I'm assuming pay minimum wage. Because like, yeah, it sucks and you want to quit and you hate your job, but you kind of need money. It's not as easy as just quitting. So many people wish they could quit their jobs, but they can't.
Everything that this person, I think it's a female to male, Evan. Their name is Evan.
That was so funny because I love her trying to figure out his transition, being like, I think it's a female to male, I don't really know. Evan. Their name is Evan. Like, thank you for proving that it's like not easy to tell, and also you can gender someone using they, them when you aren't aware of their gender. So, good, thank you.
Everything that Evan is saying is just normal things that you go through in the service industry. Some days you have great days. Some days the customers are awful to you. And you know what? That's what you signed up for. It's fine. I wish people were more polite. It's literally just life. That is the job you chose to have.
People don't really choose to go into these jobs. And I'm gonna go on the back of what I just said before of like, not a lot of places want to hire students. Not a lot of places have flexible hours that accommodate to students, and places like Starbucks and a lot of like retail and minimum wage or lower wage places are targeted towards students and advertise the fact that, you know, you can have flexible schedules, they understand that you're a student, etc. Your options are very limited, and they are mostly limited to customer service, whether that be hospitality or retail. That's why you see so many students in those jobs. And I'm not saying everyone who works there, like, didn't choose to work there. Some people do just want to be baristas, or they want to work in retail. Or, like, not everyone there is there just because it's the only option, but a lot of people are. Like, you ask anyone in university or in high school, and like, most of them are gonna say that when they're looking for work, it's in one of those fields, because those are the only ones that offer you the hours that you need, as well as are willing to hire you. And even then, now, that's still really hard. Even now, like, a lot of cafes, a lot of retail places, they expect you to have experience. They list like 2 years experience needed. And it's like, how am I meant to get anything if you have to have experience for literally every single job? You don't just choose. You can't just quit. You're kind of forced into it a lot of the time. You apply for everything and then you take what you get. When I first moved to London, I came here like wanting to work, obviously. I was really lucky that I was able to move in with my auntie and uncle here, because otherwise I would have been absolutely fucked. I did not have enough money to take me all the way through COVID if I was living by myself. And I spent months from January until lockdown happened 3 months later, looking for a job. And I came in with experience. I had 3 years of retail experience, and 2 of those was at a like jeans shop where I had really, really good references. I was the top salesperson. I was in like the top 5 salespeople within Australia and New Zealand in the entire like company, which is like 6 different shops. I was really good at my job. And I had really good references, and I worked my ass off in order to get those references so that when I moved here, I would be able to use that to get a new job in retail. And I started applying for everything because I just needed something, and I got nothing. It's not, it's not easy. And it's not because I'm a foreigner either. I have a UK passport. I am a British citizen. It's so hard. You can't just choose. You can't just get every job you apply for. It doesn't even matter if you have experience. It doesn't matter if you're good at your job. You take what you can get. While on the topic of work and stress, I wanted to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, Aura Health by Aura. Aura Health is a mindness and wellness app, which is really great for a whole range of things, such as reducing stress in your life, helping you get a better sleep, being more mindful, breathing, reducing anxiety, etc. So personally, I really struggle to get a good night's sleep. I am someone who finds it really, really hard to fall asleep. And I found that things such as nature sounds and rain sounds, etc. can be really helpful. And Aura Health have a whole range of different soundscapes, which I really love because I get really bored of the same thing all the time. Like sometimes I need to listen to the same exact sound for like a week straight, but then my brain is like, I hate this. I hate it. It's annoying. I can't listen to it anymore. And so it's really nice to have something that I'm able to change to just mix it up a little bit, and then I can fall asleep better again. I find it really hard to sleep in silence. My brain doesn't like it, so something like this is really helpful. And there's guided breathing exercises to help you to fall asleep, which is another thing I find really helpful. Reducing stress through mindfulness is something that is really, really helpful, and I highly recommend you doing. I highly recommend checking out Aura Health. You can use the link in the description or up on the screen right now. And the first 500 people to use my link will not only get a free trial, but will also get 25% off their subscription. So if you are interested in checking it out and living more mindfully, then go check out that link now. Thank you, Aura, for sponsoring today's video. And let's get back into the stress of capitalism.
Matt Walsh tweeted about it, and somebody replied to him and said, "We have raised a generation of adult 5-year-olds, emasculated them in advertising, culture, film, education, and gender bending, etc. By 18, I was coat hangering turds from toilets at work and gutting deer." I definitely was not doing that, but throughout high school and college, I was cleaning up bathrooms at Trader Joe's, so we've all done our time, basically.
It's so weird being like, well, I worked harder. When I was their age, I did so much. When I was their age, I worked more hours than that, and I was a student. When I was their age, I did this, and I just sucked it up and got on with it. Okay, but I bet you hated it too. I bet you also hated it and you didn't want to be doing it, but you did it because you had to. Just because you had it hard doesn't mean you should want everyone else to have it hard too. Like, I'm sorry that you hated your job and I'm sorry that you got pushed to work so hard, but like, surely you wish there was an option to not do that? Like, why do you want people to continue to suffer just because you did?
Somebody else said, "Wait till he sees all the taxes and deductions taken from his paycheck." Yeah, that'll be a rude awakening. You're having to work those god-awful 8.5 hours and you're basically just getting paid for 5 of them.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating. Taxes are so annoying. And like, I get that they're coming from a perspective of being anti-tax or whatever, but like, I am pro-tax, right? All for public systems like public healthcare and social welfare and stuff like that, right? I'm very for that. However, it's insane how much the working class get taxed. Like, the tax gap is insane. I know they do tax brackets, right? And so it's like, if you earn between this much and this much, you get this much tax. If you earn between this much and this much, you get this much tax. And like, that's a really good idea. And I'm really glad that that's a thing and that's enforced. But I think it's still like a lot to be taken off of the working class when wages are so low and the cost of living is so high, and very little of that tax money is actually helping in the living crisis. It's kind of insane to take that much of it. Although the rich get a higher percentage taken off of them, it's still like not enough, because the poor have been getting poorer and the rich have been getting richer, and there's effectively no middle class anymore. We're continuously taking money from people who were considered middle class and taking money from the working class at like a large rate considering how much the cost of living is. Once you pay the cost of living and then you take tax, you've got nothing. You've got literally nothing. And that's not cool. I think you should tax how much you have after you pay to live, maybe. Also, maybe, like, if I'm paying council tax, why do I still have to pay that much on my normal tax? Why isn't that included in my taxes? You know? Like, that's insane to me. Why do I have to pay £200 a month on top of my rent, on top of taxes, to pay for council tax? Ridiculous. That's so stupid. Whereas, obviously, the people who are wealthy and very rich and have a lot of money, they get taxed, yeah, at a higher percentage, but, like, they can already afford to live and then pay that 100 times over, you know? Like, if you took more money from the wealthy and less money from the working class, the money you take from the wealthy would cover more than what you're taking from the working class. You'd have more money all around, and that is more fair. Like, I was talking about this the other day, and just a billionaire that comes to mind, right? Like Jeff Bezos, right? He has $124 billion, right? If you took away 99% of his money, he would still have like $1.2 billion. You could take 99% of his money and he would still have more money than like 99% of people will have in their entire lives. It's insane. You can tax the wealthy so much more and effectively remove tax on the working class in order to allow people to afford to just live, you know? And I know that's not even the conversation of this video, but it's kind of ridiculous. I don't know, laughing about taxes, like, yeah, you hate taxes too, right? You don't like paying your taxes. So, like, if you want to pay less taxes, make other people pay more, because they do not need all that money. They're just sitting on it for no goddamn reason.
Another person said he's allowed to be frustrated at Starbucks and his crappy manager not pulling their weight. People keep bringing up his 8-hour shifts, but working a job on top of being a full-time student would be tiring. He's having a vent, so what?
Oh, boo-hoo. Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
The editing of this is so annoying. Like, you can tell that it's edited by someone who is older and just thinks he's being relatable. Like, they're like, she's Gen Z. So Gen Z are watching this. We need to make her relatable to Gen Z. Let's put in like old memes and edit in the way that people haven't edited since 2015. That's a really good idea. It's so funny.
Yes, actually, being a full-time student and working a job is tiring. And that has been what normal people have done for years.
Just because something is normal doesn't mean that it is good.
Until Gen Z, because Gen Z is a generation starting in the workforce later than any other generation before them.
It's been normal up until Gen Z. It's still normal in Gen Z, obviously. But as I said, it's much harder to get a job now because people don't want to hire students and hire young people. The people before Gen Z, they could work and then buy houses. They could work and afford to go out for dinner. They could work and afford to have like a nice life. Now there is no reward to working. You work and you still can barely cover rent. Like, you work full time and you're still living paycheck to paycheck. And that's so many more people now than ever before. As well as the fact that student loans and the cost of university has increased exponentially. So not only are you working to cover your cost of living, but you're also working to cover the insane amount of student debt that you have because of how much you're forced to pay for this education that you need in order to get the jobs to work. Like, there's no reward in it. You get nothing other than just like pure survival. And that's fucked up. Why would anyone want to work? Like, all the like Gen X and boomers and whatever complaining about how we're snowflakes and fragile and they used to work all these hours. They own houses. The house that I live in right now, is a 3-bedroom flat that's like 100 square meters, which is relatively like a decent size. It's like just outside of like London. It's in Greater London. So it takes a while to get into the city. It's like falling apart. The whole thing is like tilted and the floors are all chipped up and things don't work and etc. And it would cost me £630,000 to buy. Like that would be like 800,000 US dollars and 1.3 million New Zealand dollars. That is absolutely insane. And there's no way anyone in any generation before us would have to pay that much for this. It would have been a fraction of the price. And you could work the same job and get the same exact wages that they earn today. And the house is cheaper. Like in the US, what, the minimum wage hasn't moved for over 10 years? That's ridiculous. That's like actually insane. That's so fucked up. There's no reward. There's no bang for your buck. More people are wanting to pay less, and there's more exploitation as more and more people are more and more greedy. And it's just a fucked up process. And just because it's normal doesn't mean it's good. You work all these hours and you can barely afford a 1-bedroom flat that has heating. Like, why would anyone want to work? Why would anyone want to do that? There's no reward in it, so no one's going to want to work. You want people to work? Motivate them to do it, and don't have it be, well, if you don't, you can't eat this week, because that's not a good motivation, because you should just be able to eat.
Their college jobs or their immediate post-grad jobs are their first jobs that they have ever worked. They never babysat, they never mowed lawns, they never had a bagging job at a grocery store in high school.
Literally, like, everyone I know babysat. I don't know what you mean. No one ever babysits anymore. Yes, they do. What are you talking about? Yes, they do. It's very hard to get jobs while you're in high school. Like, trust me, people try to get jobs while they're in high school, but it's kind of impossible without nepotism. If you don't know anyone, then you can't get a job while you're in high school. That's just kind of how it goes. No one wants to hire a high schooler.
And to this person's point about him just having a vent session, yes, everybody is allowed to vent. We all vent about our jobs. The issue is that he is publicly posting his vent session and making it everybody else's problem rather than his own, because he's blaming the institution of Starbucks, demanding that they unionize at a place where he chooses to work. He's blaming a society that is misgendering him and having too many customers.
You don't have to pay attention to it. You don't have to watch this video. You don't have to engage in it. If you don't agree with this conversation, then like, fine. But like, you're lying to yourself. You cannot look at the cost of living right now and the wages that people get paid and say that there's not a problem. You can't do that. You can't sit here and say that nothing's changed. You can't sit here and say it's always been normal to work and go to uni while looking at how different the circumstances are now. You can't do that. Like, you're only looking at a small piece of the information. You have to look at the whole picture. You can't sit here and say all this stuff while refusing to acknowledge how much has changed and why this is actually a problem. It's never okay to be overworked and to be mistreated in the workplace. It's never been okay through any generation. Like, it maybe was more accepted, but that doesn't make it okay. And I'm sorry if you or anyone else has gone through that, and all the people in the comments being like, oh, snowflake, Gen Z, blah. I'm sorry that that's something that you experienced, all right? But like, the argument that like that's normal and at least that doesn't happen now is so ridiculous, because it still does happen. The workforce hasn't changed that much, except now you don't earn as much money. Now you can't afford to do anything, and that's depressing and it's stressful. And like, having to worry about all of that on top of everything else is just not something anyone should have to do. And by ignoring that, you're ignoring the problem. You are deliberately leaving out information. That is what makes this important. The breakdown isn't brought on entirely by the fact that he was misgendered or that people were yelling at him to make their orders. It's brought on by the fact that he is doing all of this without any reward at all. And knowing that once he finishes his degree, getting a job is not going to be any easier. And as you said, life doesn't get much easier. And that's sad. And that does cause emotional breakdowns. And yes, people didn't used to post it online, but that's because the internet didn't exist. So obviously they didn't film it and post it online. The reason that this person is doing it and the reason people are doing this now is because now there is a wider reach, there is a wider audience, and it is important to have these conversations. And in order for people to take you seriously, Sometimes you need to be in that moment and show how serious the issue actually is. And obviously there are people like you and older people who just think it's funny and are like, lol, I would never do that. Like, okay, who cares? Have some empathy. You know, have some understanding. You obviously know how hard it is to be in the workforce sometimes. Maybe try to understand that people react to things differently. So, like, you know it's a problem. You've experienced the problem. You are part of the problem. So you know what's going on. You're not in a place to criticize this person when you know exactly what the issue is and you're just choosing to ignore it.
Go find a job that will make you happier, where you feel like you were supported if you really, really need it. And if it really isn't that bad, then suck it up and deal with it, because that's life.
I love the phrase, that's life. I always find it so interesting because, like, it doesn't have to be. We are the people who determine what life is. We are the people who make up society. We determine the rules. We are in control of that. Like, why are we continuing this cycle of this is life? It's the real world, preparing you for the real world. Why don't we change the real world? Why don't we raise people through school and things to make a better world instead of continuing this cycle of an awful world that just makes people upset all the time? And like, life is hard, get used to it. It doesn't have to be. Why do you want to keep it that way? Break the freaking cycle. I don't understand this whole like desire to preserve a society that just beats people down. You should want to change things. You should want to work towards a better world and a better life. I don't know why you could be in a position where that is not something that you desire. You keep saying that we play the victim, right? When it comes down to it, it's largely just you not wanting to accept that you are, and you don't want to accept that that's the way that it is, because accepting that you're a victim can sometimes be difficult. If you were treated badly and you were worked to death, I am sure you understand the want and the desire to change that, to leave, to not have that anymore. And I don't know how you can experience that and have that awful experience and then want to continue pushing that onto other people. Like, it doesn't make sense. You're like, I suffered, so you should suffer too. How is that your response? Instead of wanting to create a better work environment, instead of wanting to create a better place for people to be. It doesn't make sense. And I just really want people to reflect on that, because like, surely you should want to create a better and safer place for everyone. I don't know why you wouldn't want that. My camera is dying once again because I fucked the batteries because I accidentally charged them for too long and then left my camera on overnight. So a massive thank you to my Sprout and Above patrons whose names are up on the screen right now. And a huge thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons. Wolf, Toulouse, Bobby, Sparrow, Josh, Mandy, Robbie, Silly, Ikazel, Non-Euclid System, Ishita Hope, Eldo, and Ida. I love and appreciate you all so, so much. Thank you so much for joining. If you would like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/savvycat or click the link in the description. It means a lot. So yeah, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, The Queer Kiwi. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah.